Hello, everybody. Um, I'm let me make sure some things are working correctly. First off, the sound. Hello, everybody. Very good. Okay. So it looks like people can hear me, and I also need to switch to my other tabs. Where do we have this? Yes. There we go. This is what we want to look at. Yes. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Yeah. It looks like I finally switched over to. Okay. So I should have the right thing up now. And yeah, this stream is. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about my continentals and intercontinentals decks. Because I always think it's nice to give to post thoughts about the decks that you played afterwards. And usually I'm not doing write-ups anymore, so this will be the format. This is talking about the decks, and it actually allows you to go a bit more into depth about your decision making, your experience, allow people to ask some questions as well. And this time around, actually, NSG is publishing all the intercontinentals lists by default. I'm not sure if they did that last time, which is probably good because, I mean, I didn't post my EMEA list. I was always planning to, but I just have other things in mind. But it's nice for the list to just be available for people. Anyway, now they are. And also a list that I didn't actually play that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, so I ended up playing, as some of the viewers on the channel know, basically I'm not practicing or playing as seriously as I used to. So I did a lot better this season than I imagined because I was going into EMEA with not much expectations. My idea was kind of, okay, I'll bring some decks that I like to play. Not necessarily decks that I think are bad, decks that I think are okay, and then we'll see how it goes. So the first one is, so the reason I have my RH deck up is because I brought RH to EMEA. Initially, I was going to bring a totally different corp, a much more, I guess you could say a more fun corp, or it just very, very much depending on your taste, but a more casual corp that I still thought could like win games, but is a lot more swingy. But I ended up feeling like the runners had too many tools against that currently, and so kind of backtracked to a more solid option. So my old RH list for Worlds last year, I thought was a really good pick at the time. It had ice that runners weren't really prepared to deal with, or almost every runner, because turbine rigs weren't very big back then. So an Atini was pretty hard to break. Same with a Vampire Nasa and a Nancy. Saisantan, of course, is not that bad to break once you have a breaker, but it's a very nasty face check. Still 3 credits anyway. And Tatubola was there just to gear check people. And one of the reasons this deck was so good is a lot of the runners, they relied on run value early on. So Hoshiko needs to flip to get value. Sable needs to run to get clicks. Crim in general, of course, have a lot of run events. So icing centrals means those events either need to sit in their hand or they need to be like face checking ice, which can lead to very painful things. Like Vampire Nasa is a very big swing, but also like Size and 10 could just kill you in some cases if you're not careful. So there was that. But also like sometimes maybe not against Crim because installing Class Act is a concern, but sometimes they couldn't even run archives when there was a face down in there, because if there's a bacterial, you risk stealing 6 points and getting killed with punitive. So you end up in an awkward position there as the runner when you rely on runs. So you have to take more time to set up, and that gives the corp a lot of time to gain money and stuff. And of course, a big deal was that as the corp here, you're never really low on cash if they steal bacterial, as you can usually get access to your digital life and just bounce back up on money. So it was very hard for this threat not to be live. And the reason I say that is to compare to other decks that might ice all centrals, like let's say the Glacier Ag that was brought by Augustus and Sokka to Interconts, that I believe the King had a big hand in brewing, which was a really cool deck that seems very strong. But a difference that it has is that it doesn't have the explosive money power of the RH list. So you can't just bounce up like 14 credits because they stole, or more because they stole the bacterial programming. You have to gather that money over time. So you have like a Charlotte Cacador. Actually, I can bring up the list to show as well. So you have Charlotte Cacador, which honestly, after playing the tournament, seems like just a really good card. So we can take Sokka's list as an example. So you have like Charlotte Cacador. But of course, first of all, like if you ice all the centrals versus the Ari, it's harder to have ice left over for your remote. And you probably want to protect the Cacador. So RH doesn't have this problem. And also, RH might not even need to ice archives because the World Tree Ari doesn't necessarily want to go and steal 6 points right away. And this means that you don't need as many slots in ice. And it also means that the deck is like... it has an easier time locking the runner out early, in my estimation. So here you have the Hansi and the hedge fund, but doing all of this and then also locking the runner out of all centrals is kind of tricky. Now, letting a Hoshiko flip is not really a catastrophe, but the thing is, the deck that I just mentioned is like a very big deal. Where did I put that? Yeah. So like Jai, who of course ended up winning both ACC and Intercontinentals, played like this. Well, actually, this is confusing because this doesn't say first place, but I believe this was the the Continentals winning list. Of course, everyone has seen them by now, probably, but the big World Tree Ari lists, which get a huge amount of value from triggering World Tree. So it's, to tie it all back together, I mean, it used to be, there was the Hoshiko flip and the Sable that you could deny, or the Arisana just for the extra click value that you get from the install. But this is now like injected with steroids, because if you allow them a single run, that's 3 credits of value and a tutor, right? Plus they can install something with Ari if they want to. So denying runs, or especially successful runs, is like more valuable than ever. And that was a big reason for me to pick the RH back up. And as I said, a problem used to be that people adjusted to this with turbine rigs, and then the ice becomes very bad, so you had to rush out before they reach the turbine rig. But nowadays, so let's move on to the modern list. I figure, well, it's not like a big genius realization, but I realized that you could swap out Atini for Boto. And Boto is just amazing in this deck, because this deck particularly has an easy time getting to 4 points with a Regenesis score under the protection of the early threats to let you get to 4. Once you're at 4, Boto is an incredibly strong ice. It's already pretty good before that, but the thing is, once it gets to 6 strength, then even if you have Cleaver and Turbine, it's still 4 credits to break. And this is important. So this means you're not, your ice still has some taxing value after they get a turbine rig out. And that's really important, especially because turbine rigs are still valid. People still do them. I would say some runners are moving away for it a bit. It's like, well, it's a bit of a choice. Like, they might become popular again now that these kind of ag lists with Kakador are becoming, played. I mean, they have been, but they've sort of been quiet for a while, and now one of those lists did really well at Interconts. So runners should realize that this is still a problem. This is still something that you need to think about. Hey there, Rahi. It was nice meeting you at the EMEA. Rai, by the way, did really well at EMEA. She got Queen of Swiss, which was amazing. It was super cool kit list. But anyway, yes. Well, if you want to look it up, it's called the Hyper Mantle kit. Super cool. Anyway. Yes, yeah. So this list is just better than the old list used to be. You're just more resilient versus Turbine, and that's it. Boto is a really good ice. That's why this is called Big Bad Boto, because I just realized Boto is good and I put Boto in the list. Took it to EMEA and it did really well. This list, I feel like, this list dropped one game where I felt I just kind of didn't play it well, and then the other one was a really tight game versus Ryan Band Twins. I think I also went for the wrong plan there, but he also played it like incredibly well. But overall, I think this deck went like, I don't know, 6-2 or 7-2. Like, it had a really good record, and I think if you pilot it better than I did, then you'll do even better than that. So like this list like seems really good. And also I have to say the theory about this being good into World Tree Ari, which I think is completely true. That was theoretical mostly, because I didn't have, like, I was no longer practicing with a testing group. I've been like doing things on my own now, again, more for fun. And so I've just been chilling, like trying things on my own, mostly anyway. So I didn't have much practice against the World Tree Ari. I just looked at the World Tree Ari and I was like, this just loses to RH, doesn't it? Like, what if you can't run a central every turn, which is like what RH does? So that was mostly a theory. But I got to put it into practice against Will Warlock in EMEA, who, by the way, super nice guy. It was nice to meet him, and that was a really close game, actually. That was a really close game. The World Tree Ari had more resilience than I expected to. It still felt like the RH is favored in that matchup because the Ari is so slowed down by not being able to run the centrals early. Eventually, maybe you can get to a point where you can run them, but even then, you're being taxed, of course, when you're running, so you don't get those free triggers. The light the fire helped Warlock almost prevent me from winning that, and then the game could have gone on. So it was actually, the game came down to like a Psycent and fire doing enough damage. It was pretty funny. Uh, so yeah. So from that experience, it seemed favored. I had another experience, and I guess I can jump to this because let me see. Yes. So this is, I mean, essentially the same list, but I cut two tattoos because I wanted to have more spiky ice. Could be wrong, but I felt that that was the right decision. To have more spiky ice in the deck, a tattoo doesn't fit maybe that well with the overall game plan, and we already have a good barrier now in Boto, so we don't have to have it just for the gear check. So there was that, and I went down one ice to be able to add a third void because a problem was actually not drawing void early enough previously, and also people just pinholing the void. So Light the Fire is still a problem, but against those decks, you try to just make it uncomfortable for them to find the Light the Fire. I mean, in the Ari case, by like icing the centrals, so that if they're going to do that, then at least they're expending a lot of cards and resources to do it. And then you can like spin doctor your agenda back or something later. That's kind of the logic. But with Void, you can have like double Void. And yes, you can have double Void on a server, which means you're no longer getting wrecked by Pinhole. You can still get wrecked by Lucky Charm, I suppose, like some people were on for Interconts, but that's the same idea. You just tax the Ari out. Aksu asking, where is the snares? So I'm sure you already know what I'm gonna say. But yeah, the whole thing with people adding snares to this list is something I never approved of. And I think that if you get to the point where you feel you need to add the snares, you should probably play another deck, because I don't think it fits at all with the game plan of the deck. So yeah, like basically, the snare is like it's a situational reactive card, but what you want in this card is like, well, you want to be able to protect your servers with ice, you want money, and you want to score, and you want your punitive threat to be live. Snare doesn't really help with any of those, right? There's been a lot of cases where I played on JNet, and someone just installs like a naked snare versus me as RH, and I run it and they trigger it, and I'm not mad about it at all. I'm just like, oh, that's fine. You know, I'm never sad to see the snare as the runner. So yeah, don't play snare. Yeah, I mean, people played it at first allegedly for Lou, and if you play it, I mean, I don't think you should even do that, because I wasn't convinced the Lou matchup was actually that bad. I heard it was like okay-ish. Yeah, I just don't think it was the right call ever. But like maybe like, yeah, if I want to be charitable, like maybe for like very specific conditions. But yeah, I don't think it fits here, because yeah, all of the slots I'm just like very happy with. Like people were cutting hedge funds, but like you really want early money to be able to rest your eyes. And then like if you cut subliminal messaging, well, that's like a super useful card to get your drip going, and to it acts as like a buffer for voids and Boto fires and whatever. Well, Boto is a new card, but anyway. So like this list was better with 3 void, I think. This hasn't had that much practice yet, but yeah, I think it's better with 3 void. Now I did go down to Jai, and I think that basically I just threw that game, unfortunately. I can't blame the deck for that. So in all of my experiences so far, I think the deck has been favored, because my loss against Jai was I went for a really bad line where I fed him a 3-pointer so he could go to 6 when I didn't have a punitive like I knew that the math for the punitive didn't work out, which is of course like I shouldn't feed him 3 points if I know that that's not going to work out. So that was bad. And then I also he kind of messed up that turn as well, and went for a burner run that he didn't need to instead of clicking up for credits. So then I actually had lethal and I missed it, and I was incredibly upset about it later. I was like, wow, how could I miss that? But you know, that sometimes that's how it goes. And then I still maybe had an out, ended up losing on time. Of course, Jai might have gone for a different line in the last turn if it was not time. So Jai just ended up running archives to flip the face downs to make sure I couldn't Regenesis score out. But there was a line to run on R&D, which I don't know if he would have gone for if we didn't go to 10. So we'd never know how the game would have gone otherwise. But if he runs archives there, I can win the game if I get one more turn. So that was unfortunate, game being decided on time. But the point is, the RH was actually doing really well. I was kind of playing, I was just playing bad because, well, you know how it goes. Like, you get stressed, you get tired, you get nerves from the tournament stuff, and yeah, you don't even realize how much time is ticking sometimes. So so that game, I would still. So the point is, from the experiences that I have against the Ari, it does seem like the RH is really good into it. So I would advise everybody who's having a hard time against World 3 Ari is to play RH. That's my advice, because so far it's been doing great. And yeah, I think I went over the logic as well. It's just that like the run value is so high for the runner every successful run, or every first successful run, that if you can stop that, you're doing super good. Actually saying zero Tatubola. Yeah, it's a new change, and it's like I don't know. I'm not 100% sure it's correct. I just wanted, like, I didn't feel I needed it for the gear check anymore, because Aboto is doing that job. It's like gear checking barrier stuff. Maybe you want more, but and also the switch ability isn't that useful here. Like, it's way better in Ag, where you have more ice and where you can also use boop effect with Ag on face down ice. So I didn't feel that it was like necessary to have Tatubola. It's not like a bad card, but it just seemed like I wanted spiky ice instead. So it became one Atini, and one of the Tatus became a void. So that's why the list looks like this. You might try it with the Tatu if you want to, but I think this seems correct, just because Tatus, they weren't doing really that much when I was playing. Yeah, it's kind of because you don't have that many ice that usually you want to install the ice before Tatu has a chance to like swap for the ice, so it becomes like a kind of a non-bow. Yeah, I would say that's why. I was a little bit considering a thimble rig to be able to like reposition ice, but again, you kind of want the spiky ice in this list to really disincentivize the early runs. Yeah, because if you have like an early thimble rig, they just break it, they get to access, and they like steal a Fuji or something. If it was an Atini or something, they tank the damage. They might be in punitive range, but because you had a thimble rig instead, you're not killing them, and so on. Axel says, an Atini hater, I'm switching back insta. Don't hate on Atini. It never did anything wrong. I mean, so yeah, it's just like, yeah, 3 net is not bad, right? It's like, it's really bad if they get bust out turbine out, but if they don't, I think the subs are pretty good. Like, the runner can't just take a bunch of damage constantly. And of course that synergizes with your punitive threat. So if you do damage and then they end up stealing something, they might be in kill range suddenly. Oh, it is a bad DNA tracker, don't get me wrong. Like, of course, I'd much rather play DNA tracker. But let's be real, DNA tracker is from another era where ice was more cracked. And yeah, I I would love DNA tracker in this deck. That would be, yeah, amazing. Because, you know, they get even lower on money, and they take damage at the same time. That would be absolutely crazy. Plus it's 6 strength, so it's not soft to Turbine Rig, which pretty sick. Yeah. So this is like DNA tracker, but you only get one of the upsides. So yeah. But cool. I think that's like the RH thoughts. Of course, if there are any questions about it, then feel free to ask them. But like, I feel like I was a bit lucky to being someone who had, I mean, limited desire and will to practice. Well, just limited will to practice like crazy and do all the testing group stuff. I had luck on my side to have a lot of experience with a deck that just seemed to be good into the meta. So just looking at the decks, this just seemed to fit, and it kind of worked out. And I think, if I just didn't fumble in those like important moments, this might even have gone like to grand final, which was crazy. Like going into Interconts, I didn't have expectations. I was just like, you know, if I get top 8, that's great. But like, if I get knocked out right away, I'm not really sad. Like I'm not playing, I'm not practicing like I used to. I still felt like I was decently prepared. Like I had drawn up a bracket of expected matchups. I had some calls of what I thought people were gonna play, and I felt confident in my ability to play my deck. So like that's decent prep, but I didn't expect to do so well. But then of course I just don't like making mistakes. I think that's it. Like if I'm not gonna win Intercons again, I want it to be because, you know, that's just not how the cards fell. But in this case, it was my own fault, you know. So I can only blame myself. But yeah, that would have been cool. But regardless, you know, well played to Jai, and congratulations. And third was above expectations going into the event, so it's still cool. And unfortunately, they're not going to do Intercons next year. Hope they bring it back at some point. Anyway, so this was RH. And what do we have? Yeah, we so this lat. So the new cards came out. It just seemed like they gave Shaper so many cool new tools. Of course, Burner and Trick Shot. It's like stuff you can play with Anicam, and it's really good in my opinion. But then like Coalescence seemed like it enabled Ace-Up decks again, and I kind of became excited about this idea. So I started playing this way back, but then it was like with a more old school rig. It was the deck was like almost only money and Turbine Rig at that point. Like it was playing like 3 Fermenter and Turbine Rig and stuff. So the deck was like incredibly rich, but sometimes just lacked the speed to get into servers. Let's see. Raya says, it's unfortunate that you got no Ace-Up game twice in ICC and EMEA. Yes, so it's unfortunate. It's like it can have bad timings. Like the thing is, and I will get. Was thinking I would get to this, but like you actually will have a decent amount of games where you see Ace-Up later than you want to. Now, of course, seeing Ace-Up in the last 13 cards is not great, but that's almost as bad as seeing Ace-Up in the last 20 cards. So yeah, having to draw ace ups is a problem, and it makes the deck results kind of swingy. Like your chance to see ace up in like I don't remember the numbers, but it's like in the first 7 or something cards is like 50% ish something. Maybe I can just pull the calculator up because I use this. So let's say we have a deck size of 45. We run 3 copies. We draw 7 cards. Okay, I think maybe it was 9 cards. Okay, yeah. So around the time you get to 9 cards drawn, you have a 50% chance of having seen your ace ups. That's not by any means a guarantee. Like this isn't even above 50. So, and even if it's like, even if we draw, let's say we draw 13 cards, now we get to 65. But 65 is by no means a guarantee. So you should see ace up like at some point, you know, kind of starting between. I mean, it's not impossible to see it early, but it starts getting unreasonable at some point. Like if you've seen like 17, I don't know, let's say, like, you know, it just gets like more and more unlikely that you will not have seen it. So, though it also gets worse and worse the later you see ace up. I think if you don't, I don't know exactly when. It of course depends on the matchup, but there's a certain amount of turns where you need to see it, or it almost doesn't matter anymore if you draw it because things have already escalated too much outside of your favor because you didn't have it early enough. So yeah, that's, I think the biggest problem for the deck is this the ace up inconsistency, but also when I was playing in EMEA, the lily pad inconsistency, which is why I ended up going up to 3 lily pads in the end, because like you need both of those cards. Both of them are incredibly important. I think usually I keep a hand if it has either of these and the rest looks like okay, then I will usually keep, because yeah, those are really important. And also lily pad helps you get the draw to find your ace up more easily. But anyway, like the overall idea of the deck is, I guess, the ace up engine and the value you can get from coalescence and muse. So with ace ups, coalescence is +5. With lily pad and ace up, it's 5 and a draw. And then you have muse, which becomes like 6 credits over 2 turns and a draw with the lily pad. Plus, of course, the flexibility that muse offers in allowing you to tutor stuff with SMC is amazing. So this is like the value engine. And Simulchip is amazing here because, well, if you have your engine running, it's doing all of this, but it's 1 credit cheaper. So you can make it a coalescence, but you're gaining an extra credit because it costs 1 less to install. Also, the fact that ASAP constantly has your Simulchip be active is amazing. Means you never need to like manually trash a program for Simulchip. You always just pop it, get something from the bin, and it's really good. So you could play this with the turbine rig, but because of the rushy decks where I feel like you need to get in early, it's on a leaner rig inspired by Sokka's Boring Lat with Revolver. Now, one mistake I made in the EMEA version, I will just call it a mistake because I think it is not having propeller. So you have a super lightweight way to get past code gates and sentries in Entangler. You can, for example, install SMC. You can trick shot your way. So the deck is, of course, exploiting overclock and trick shot with SMC, and it's better than it is usually because you have such an easy time accessing SMC because you can recur it with Muse, and then you can use all that money to tutor what you need out of your deck, and you have so many tools. So Entangler allows you easy way past a lot of ice, especially early. And again, the need to get in early is sort of what drives the Breaker Suite here and why I'm playing Entangler. also the fact that Entangler gets you past annoying eyes like Archer. Yeah. So, yeah. So you had a nice way to get past sentries and code gates. Like if it was a sentry you need to break, like an Anansi, you can get Revolver instead. And of course, if you want to break it for real and it's a code gate, you can get Unity. But normally, if you want and you just need to get past one ice, you can just bypass with Entangler. Yes, but if it was a barrier, then you run into issues because you can't Entangler the barrier. And the pressure spike is really expensive to get out and not that good early on if it's a high strength ice. So this is a problem. And Propeller solves that pretty nicely because there's a lot of cases against, let's say, PD where you're like, okay, I want to SMC and trick shot and then get past their one ice on the remote. And then that ice is rest and it's a Bran. And you're like, okay, you can click through it maybe, if you're lucky, if you didn't have to use a click for something else. But it's not ideal. And Pressure Spike is going to be, well, it's 4 credits to install, but also early on it's 7 credits to break Bran before you get to threat 4. When it's 5, it's more okay. But Propeller, that's super affordable. You have the trick shot run, you pay 1 credit for the Propeller, 2 from the SMC pop, and 3 to break. So it's 6 credits to get past the Bran. And it's a one-time thing, but then you can trash the Propeller to an Aesop or something. So Propeller, just the fact that it lets you get in through these annoying barriers is amazing. So yes, the one of Propeller is super good. This should be in the deck. The third lily pad absolutely should be in the deck. Yes, but that's sort of, so that's the deck idea, I guess. And then it had a bunch of environmental testing, which gave me even more money. So the idea is kind of like, well, you get in early and you stop their plans, and then you keep making a lot of money with stuff like environmental testing and Aesop, and then you just hit them over the head with your money bag and to try to deny their threats. And this works sometimes, but sometimes they, as PD or whatever, they still manage to establish a Skunk Void remote, and then you have problems, especially if you're not that efficient at breaking Bran. So yeah, it did well at the event, or okay-ish, but it has some problems, and I tried to fix them here with this version. So one big problem was the cost of installing Pressure Spike. Tried to fix that by adding Propeller. And this I'm not 100% on, but I felt like I really needed multi-access on R&D beyond just trick shot, because some games go longer, and some games the core completely neglects R&D. This, for example, against the Tuno Ob is a big problem. And yeah, actually you're right, Entangler is a pretty busted card. But it's a busted card, but it's also a balanced card. It's kind of busted. I don't know. It's right on that edge where it feels like it's okay enough. But I don't know. I don't know about it's good that it cannot bypass barriers. I'll tell you that. Not good for me in the tournament, but good for the game. So I was saying, so I felt like you really needed a way to pressure R&D more, especially because a lot of corps, they just ended up neglecting it because they're like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to access 2 with trick shot? Really? So they just focused on the remote, and if I can't get into the remote, they put all the agendas they can draw in the remote, then neglecting R&D makes sense. So I wanted to be able to punish that against decks like the Acidob Tuno was playing, and PD, and just any slow corp as well, like the Ag that I ended up playing as. Although actually with with Cacador is not that slow. Cacador is pretty crazy, or Cazador. I'm not sure if it's Cazador, but the point is, if the game grinds to a halt, having some kind of thing that says, well, if you chill forever, I'm going to kill you with this combo of Pretty and Niashia. So Pretty gives you one additional access if you're going to access at least 2 cards. So you can play this with Trick Shot. But another thing with this deck is, so on HQ accesses, I already had a way to tutor multi-access. And one of the great things about this deck is that you can tutor like everything, your breakers, your money, and also your multi-access, at least on HQ. So I wanted to make it so you can tutor it on R&D as well. So I added a card that like no one plays, but I thought it actually makes sense in this case. Is a Niashia to give me more access on R&D, and this combos with Pretty as well. Yeah, people might call me crazy for this. Like I'm still not totally sure, but I feel like this might be correct for this deck. And part of the reason why is, at least in this configuration, part of the reason why is if you play like Conduit, you have to make many runs on R&D, but some of my breakers, like Revolver, is limited use. So I can't be like spending all my counters I can't be spending all my power counters charging Conduit, because then I run out of breaking capability. So instead, I want to be able to make a run, access a bunch on that run, and then not have to make so many runs. So even though I can recycle Revolver a few times, I was a bit worried about this. Niashi is cheaper and it has immediate impact. So I ended up going with that instead. And Trat Pingvin asks, did you miss pinhole threading? I feel like you need them against all these voids. Yeah, so like I'm not a huge pinhole threading fan. I understand that it's a good card. It's I don't think about it as missing it, because I know that if I had it in my hand in a lot of games, I would not like it. It's more like sometimes when you're up against the void, then you wish that you had the pinhole. There's also cases where against like the Ob, where a Hollow Man gets rest, and you can't really get into the remote, but you just want to get rid of that one card to slow down their scoring. The pinhole is super useful. But yeah, here, like, the thing is, like, yeah, I would have to cut another card that I'm liking, and also the pinhole would not be doing something against all of these. Now, maybe you should still consider it, especially because I was having problem against Glacier, this Cacador. This could be a way to get rid of Cacador. So I'm not going to say you shouldn't play Pinhole, but I tried to deal with this, like the remotes, by pressuring centrals instead, which is usually how I like to handle this. Is like, instead of adding the tech card to deal with the remote, I'm going to like try to pressure your centrals and win that way. And it was doing well enough, but in fairness, I did end up losing then to Augustus in the losers bracket finals, because I just get taxed out by the ice, and then I didn't have a way to deal with void. Although that's not having a way to deal with void is probably not the only reason I lost. There is also my breaker suite is pretty inefficient against his ice. So so I just get taxed out very easily. I get a few accesses and then I get taxed out. It would have been better if I got the pawn shop early, as mentioned, but that still only buys me a few more accesses. It's not like it fundamentally changes the matchup. So it might give me enough accesses where it tips the scales and I can suddenly get the accesses that I needed, but it doesn't like solve the matchup. The matchup still seems difficult into the ice that the ag brings and all the ender runs that it brings. So this deck is built lean against fast corpse and Yeah, corpse that have like kind of flimsy eyes and remotes. It has like enough money and tricks to get in, but against a deck that just puts like very taxing strong eyes and has a lot of money backing it up, I think it would be fine. But there's too many end the run abilities. So if I can just get in, I have enough cash to get in, but not if I need to get in like a few times. Like if there's a Nise counter and an ag and a void, this becomes too many things to deal with. Yeah. So if you want to, you could try to put this value engine back like I used to do and play this with a turbine rig to better deal with decks with more taxing eyes. That could be a good idea, but like it's all trade-offs, of course. Like then you might no longer have the revolver to deal with the annoying archer or I don't know, drafter, whatever, early on. So it would change the character of the deck. I did end up getting a win against the ag in 1 out of 2 games. I think the matchup is probably unfavored. But that's just to say that, okay, maybe it's not unwinnable. But yeah, I think it's bad. But yeah, I thought this was cool that now you can tutor the flexibility of the deck is like you can tutor multi-access for both HQ and R&D. So depending on where you need to go, you tutor the right cards and you pressure there. So yeah, if you can read where the agendas are, then you have a way to go and get them. And note that Cupulation can host cards from archives, which is something I did against the Act because it was so expensive to get into servers. There was the game I won. I had a last-ditch run where I run archives, get a card on Cupulation, so the archives wasn't iced, and then running HQ and getting the accesses theirs. Let's see. Axel says, Niashi has a bad JNet deck classic. It absolutely is, but it kind of makes sense here. Yeah, I feel it like kind of makes sense here. Like I think I have good reasoning for it. Finally, I think I feel like I'm one of the people who can actually claim to have like a good reason to include Niashi in their deck. The lower bracket finals felt more like it was coming down to not seeing Aesop's. Yes, I think that was like if I did see Aesop's, that game might have looked a lot different. It's hard to say where it would have gone. So obviously, like missing all of that money that Aesop's brings, it probably would have dripped me. Well, it would have given me a bunch of money. Like I ended up having to trash a bunch of programs because I didn't have Aesop to trash them for me before then. So yeah, it would have looked differently. I can't say how it would have gone, but the ice is still hard to get through, and there's still a lot of like annoying tricks. So I can't say that I would have won with Aesop. I'm just saying I would have had a chance with Aesop, perhaps. Todd Piming says, I phrased it as missing since both Sokka and Ramp and Twins Lat were on 2 pinhole. Oh yeah. I think I'm kind of alone-ish in this approach. Like I've been kind of allergic to pinhole since its release. So I usually try to solve things in a way where like I can, if I don't have to include it, I don't. Like maybe you could argue that I do have to include it, but I did well enough without it. So maybe I can still get away with not playing it. I just don't like how it sits in your hand and then it can miss sometimes, and sometimes it's not useful at all. So I try to have like generic solutions for things. Andrea says, these explanations are super interesting. Thanks for doing this. You're welcome. I'm happy it's appreciated. If you have any questions about it, just ask, because this is the time I'm streaming and I'm not doing it all that much anymore. So yeah, ask the questions now. Yeah, Fam is smoking the good stuff. Pinhole is pretty necessary. It's maybe. Like, what could you phrase why you think it's necessary? I guess you could argue that maybe you need it. I could see it if there's enough factors. Then it's like, okay, void is good to get rid of. Kakador is good to get rid of. Hollow Man is good to get rid of. Like, I can see it, but like, also I just want to recognize that that's not the only way to deal with issues. Is pinhole. Like, if there's a Hollow Man in a remote, sometimes you can just get into the remote. Like, for example, against the newer Spike Asmari, this deck has a pretty easy time like entangling past the what are those called? The piranhas, and trashing Holomans. And yeah, being able to get in. And yeah. And yeah, oftentimes I find just pressuring centrals works decently well. Like, I was doing it last Worlds too, and then I thought, at that point, I thought it was absolutely the right call. I guess you could argue now we also have Hollow Man and Cazador. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, Axu, and again, like, I haven't like done super targeted testing with all of this stuff. It's just like, well, it seems the results were like pretty good without the pinhole. Yeah, but I guess you could argue that you do need it. Axel says it's not the only way to deal with stuff, but it's in my opinion would do enough over coup or something. Coup, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're saying there with coup, but yeah, if you do need it and you like this deck, then I'm sure you can cut something, maybe one Entangler or a Revolver. I would probably cut an Entangler in that case and get the pinholes in there. I just don't like what it would do to the deck because, well, the deck already has problems with inconsistency and cards clogging. So if you add more stuff, it messes with the draw is all I'm saying. But it might be a tool that you want. Rai says, I play Kit and I'm forced to play around having no pinhole. Yeah. Oh, Coop is Coopulation. Fair enough. Well, no, don't cut Coopulation. That's... I would say definitely no, because, well, I mean, it's tutorable multi-access for HQ. Like, yeah, it's spelled different. It doesn't matter, but it's like yeah, I wouldn't like Cupulation is. I mean, it's useful just well for the fact that it can trash things without trashing them. First of all, it can take a win condition out of the corpse hand without putting it in archives. That's also pretty cool. Like if you're up against like double end of the line kill, you can like put a end of the line on it. Although maybe those decks play 3, so maybe that's bullshit. But anyway, the main point though is it's multi-access for HQ that you can tutor. Like that I feel like that should be enough to sell you on the card. But I mean, if you don't like it, if you don't think it's useful, you can try without it. That's sure. In my opinion, it's like there are games where you don't like it and it's doing nothing, but it's also been a card that in a lot of games does a lot, and just having access to it is good. Like you don't always have to install this or tutor for it, but being able to tutor for it is quite useful. Basically, it's like whenever you as the player are like, well, I read that there are a lot of agendas in HQ. Okay, go get the Cupulation and go access HQ and steal all of those. Like, not a bad idea, right? Yeah. Okay, well that's the lat. You might say like, actually you don't might say. I was gonna say you might say that you can play this in Ari, but like honestly, Ari doesn't make sense with this rig at all. So. Because you don't get to keep the programs that you install during the Ari run. Yeah, so I think this engine makes sense in lat. And yeah, it's like, I'm not claiming that this is like the best deck or something. It was the best I could do, and it was a deck that I liked. I found it had answers to like a decent amount of stuff. It's incredibly swingy because of the Aesop's problem. If you can solve that somehow, then fine, but probably playing something like Meeting of Minds is not a good idea. Yeah. So inconsistency issues. However, if it gets its engine rolling early enough, it's a scary runner deck to face. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that. Of course, ask any questions you want. Now for the bonus. This is the bonus, okay? This is what I. Yeah, this is my failure to be as casual, I guess, as I wanted to be. Because I had this PE deck that I was kind of excited to play. I'd been jamming it a bunch, and it's of course it's JNet, but it had been doing really well on JNet. And I was having fun with it. I like this deck. So a part of going to EMEA was just like, oh, I'll get to play my PE deck. But the in jamming it more, I was just like a bit frustrated with all the tools that the runners have to deal with stuff like this, and I ended up putting it on the shelf for that reason. I was like, oh, no, they just have too much stuff here to deal with this. That being said, like, I still wanted to show this. I think it's interesting, and I don't think it's that bad. And I want to explain. Okay, so we've all seen Mitosis PE, and this is Mitosis PE. But I think this deck is really cool for a few reasons. Yeah. So I'm gonna pause for some water, and then I'll tell you about this Mitosis PE. All right, here we are. Why not Otoroshi? I think short answer, it doesn't do anything if you don't have stuff installed on the board yet. And also, yeah. With Otoroshi too, like the worst thing that can happen if they don't want you to put the counters is just that they pay 3. And I think runners, they're rich enough to pay the 3. I don't know. But then there's a risk that it does nothing. It costs more to rest than the tithe. I don't know. But that's kind of it. Initially, I was actually on Fenutria, and actually I was talking to William about this deck, and he was like, "Oh, why not tithe?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I do have money problems sometimes. I've been pretty happy with Fenutria, but the truth is, I was having money problems." Anyway, so it's a Mitosis PE, and the good thing about Mitosis PE is that you can you can make your opponent worry about dying as early as turn 1. If you Mitosis out, let's say, NGO front and a Fuji asset retrieval, and then you triple advance the Fuji asset retrieval, you're already threatening scoring the Fuji next turn by double advancing, and then playing a Newer Spike. And now the runner is dead. Right, so this is scary. Of course, they could have Steel Skin. They could install Stone Ship, which is part of the problem with the deck. But that's asking a decent amount out of the runner. They need to have a particular card. So the runner might feel the need to go and run your triple advanced card right away if they don't have a way to dodge this. The thing, though, is if they're wrong about it being a Fuji, then it might be a cerebral overwriter. They take 3 core. Now they have a hand size of 2. And it's very easy for the runner to die from that point. Now, we typically can't just kill them out of hand. Like, if we install Advanced Events Blood in the Water, we would need to have another click to be able to neurospike them. But from this point on, for example, if they leave a Blood on the Water on the table, you can just double advance and neurospike, and that's enough to kill them. So, very scary for the runner, because you can put them in a position where either you access an overwriter, you go to 2 hand size, or you access the Fuji and you're fine. And the other way around, if you don't run it, then you might lose if it's a Fuji. So these are problems for the runner. This is made a little bit worse by the existence of See How They Run, because this means a double advanced card actually could lead to you dying. Now, this is just a one-off, and the end of the line is also just a one-off. So, of course, the threat is if you have a double advance See How They Run, you can advance it twice, score it, do 2 net damage, and then play end of the line for the kill. These are both one-offs, so it will be rare, or like almost never happen, that this actually occurs in a game. But it's still something the runner needs to worry about. So if there's a double advance card, the runner might feel the need to run it just because it's a double advance card. Now, of course, if they run our ambushes, it's better that they have more advancements. Like if they run the triple advanced overwriter, it's better it has more advancements, because dealing more core gets us closer to our win state. Yeah. But yeah, so we have those. You can also, of course, combine these threats. So if you need to do more damage, you could get Sting up to 3 advancements to, for example, get past a chart room. So if you have like the Fuji and the Sting, now you can get past 1 chart room. So you can always, even if they have tech, you can always keep reapplying the threat if they are refusing to run stuff on the board. One of your main issues is you don't have enough overwriters, because sometimes if the runner just runs everything and you didn't draw your overwriter, then you're just in deep trouble. It's kind of like the Aesop's problem. The overwriter is so important to your game plan that it's annoying. But as soon as they have run an overwriter, you're usually in a good spot. Hopefully they didn't steal too many points before then, because then it might still be hard to finish the game off. And yeah, so that's the main thing. The other traps, they don't do much until an overwriter has been accessed, unfortunately. If they access an Urtica, they can usually just draw back up. So sometimes it's like an annoying tempo hit. Like you can install a bunch of cards. One of them is Urtica, and they take 2 net. The check is Scion. If they take a bunch of tags, they can die to... Well, actually, check is Scion is not true. But like often they can clear their tags. And you need some other way to do damage before you can kill them with end of the line. And of course, you might not even draw the end of the line. There's Mindscaping too. So if they access this, they keep 2 tags. They can always die to Mindscaping end of the line. So that's kind of incentivizing them to get rid of tags. Yeah. Yes, yeah. That's cool. Okay. So we have all these little threats here. We have a little tag theme, but it's a very side thing just to make them worry about See How They Run, to make them worry about Checkist Scion, to make them clear the snare tag. Other than that, we're trying to make money to develop our mitosis threats. And then we have some other neat little tricks in here, like Trick of Light. So Trick of Light is when we have it could be we have a trap that they do not run, or just, I mean, maybe a sting that we're not going to score that they do not run. This allows us to, for example, fast advance a sting out from hand if they're low enough on cards and just kill them. Like if they steal 2 stings, this means we can do 4 net damage just from our hand, just because we have a double advanced card. A niche scenario, but just to illustrate the power of these threats. So that's kind of fun. And yeah, it also makes our early threats scarier, kind of, because if let's say you draw click 1, then you mitosis and you have a double advanced card. Now it's unlikely that you get to see how they run kill, but if you got the Fuji, you can still Trick of Light from the other card, advance and score, and Neurospike. So the fact that this saves you a click makes the double advance cards more scary and more likely for the runner to check them. But yeah, the rest is like money and draw. So Rashida, actually, I think this might be the wrong version, because there's a Hansei review in here, which I think is actually one Cazador in my final version. Like NGO is better than Cazador, but yeah, I think I was still playing 1 because she can be great. But yeah, something like this. So this was actually this was not a terrible deck. I was winning a bunch with this. Of course, a bunch of people just makes mistakes, but even the best players, if they're faced with like this early play with the mitosis, it's like a 50-50 situation. And the logic is like, if you get enough of those 50-50 situations, then you will win one of the 50-50s. So even if the runner gets 2 or 3 50-50s right, if they mess up on the 4th one, they might be dead anyway. And that's the power of the deck. If you get to flip that coin enough times, eventually it's going to be in the corp's favor. So the runner, I think, can't just sit idly by and allow you to develop this. Triggering your traps is expensive, so that's why we can't afford to spend much money on our ice, which is why Tatubola is great here. It can just hopefully swap back and forth and give us money. Either way, it's not much to us. So our ice is just there to gear check, to not cost a lot. Tithe gives us the money back. So that we can dedicate our money to our expensive stuff like mitosis, like Neurospike, and so on. Let's see what people are saying. Business as usual. Axel says, happy you decided to play RH instead. Why? because this is a bad deck, or because you wouldn't have wanted to play against this? I don't know. Andrea says, actually, sorry, Shadow Dancer had some comments. That makes sense. You shouldn't play 3 Otoroshi because of that, but his numbers are still really good. Better when you're in clearing house, I guess. Shadow Dancer says, with the tech plan, I think 3 Mindscaping even over Hedge Fund could be correct. I'd say it's a very niche plan, and money is really important, and Hedge Fund is better at that. Not that Mindscaping is bad in this deck, but it's not amazing for the money. So I have it as the flex slot, because I like having the ability to kill them based only on the fact that they have tags. So if they have 2 tags, but I can't score anything, they still need to worry about Mindscaping end of the line. That's why I feel the need to keep the Mindscaping in there. Just as like the runner having to worry about things. Not that you usually will have drawn both, but the runner, in order to stay safe, has to play around more stuff. Okay. Also, Moonpool is amazing in this type of deck. I don't think Moonpool is amazing here because it's expensive, and it also requires you to be holding enough agendas in hand or in archives. I guess I kind of see it, because if they go for the cerebral axis and you can trigger the Moonpool, it would be good. It's just a lot of setup, but so that's what I would say. I could also see it doing a similar role to Trick of Light, where it helps you like score something out faster. But yeah, it seems a bit hard to pull off is my only problem. Like I like the idea, but it seems hard to pull off. I think we play it over Trick of Light possibly. Yeah, but what I like about the Trick of Light is just like it's more lightweight. Like all we need is a double advanced card to use it. A moon pool, we need 2 agendas and 3 credits. Here we need 1 credit and a double advance card. Business as usual. As follow-up over the mitosis, asks Andrea. I think well, I don't know. It could be a nice card. You'd have to cut one of the cards that I kind of like here. I think you'd have to like cut the Checkist Scion. I mean, unless you want to get rid of the tag threats completely. And I don't like making the deck even less dense on ambushes because I mean, because like that's how you protect yourself is with the ambushes. So, but you could argue the Checkist Scion is not doing enough. Sure. Business as usual. I mean, there's situations where it would be nice. It could save you a click and end up getting a kill like a turn earlier. So, I haven't thought a lot about it, but it could be worth a consideration. Shadow Dancer says, I wonder if we play 2 false lead over the third. The third what? Oh, Blood in the Water. No, I don't think so. You could try it. I'm just like, Blood and Water is so good when they hit the cerebral. Like it's really, it's just really amazing. To close the games out. So all of the agendas I feel fit very well into that plan. If you're gonna cut any agenda, then I guess make it see how they run, because it's such a niche interaction. Like I could see an argument for getting rid of the tag package here. Personally, I would not cut Blood in the Water. 1 to 2 Charlotte seems good. Yeah, I think 1 is good. 2 probably not. It's just like a lot worse than NGO. If they do run it. If they don't run it, it's of course a little bit better than NGO. But yeah, you can't really protect your Cazador like in other decks. What's the most damage we can do? We can do in a turn. I mean, in theory, I think so in theory we can do like a lot, of course. If we score 2 Fujis, that's already 6 damage, and then we could Neurospike twice for 6 more damage each. That's 18, and then end of the line, if they're tagged, that could be like 22 damage in a turn. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but in a realistic sense, I would say, I think 9 damage is not totally unrealistic. Like being able to score a Fuji, a Sting, and then Neurospiking in the same turn, that's not totally unfeasible. So that's something that you could realistically do. I think more than that is unrealistic. 24, I think. So actually you're thinking if we score all 3 Stings and a Fuji, because we need not to win. We need not to win. Well, each Sting is 2, right? So 6, 3 from the Fuji, 9 plus 6 from each Neurospike. That's 21. 25 with end of the line. I think it's 25. Maybe I'm missing something, but but I digress. 2 Fuji, 2 Neuro, end of the line, and 1 Sting after they have stolen 2. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're saying, Axel. So we can do the damage before we win. No, actually, no. That's the problem. You win before the damage is dealt, Aksu. So that does not work. I have to correct you on that. But anyway, so I was having fun with this, and as you can see, like, it's basically like, the good old Mitosis PE, but I try to build it in a way where the runner has to worry about as much stuff as possible. Your main issue is money, and that you really need, that you might have a shortage of cerebrals. but like a good marker for a corp deck, I guess, especially in this meta, is if it puts a lot of pressure on the runner right away. So this is something that this deck can do, which means that it's a deck that can, like, if you get the right draw and they make the right runs, it can win like super fast. So I think that's cool. Not grinder. It's definitely not grinder. I mean, I've been known to play grinder, but this is not. This is not grinder. This is a tag based. Yes, tag based tempo. Yeah, it's like blood in the water, fast advance, fast Jinteki deck. But yeah, now I've been chatting for quite a while. This was actually I was chatting. I was talking more than I was expecting today. It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, thanks for interacting in the stream chat. It's like, it's really fun to have people to bounce ideas off of. Is this deck a concession to World Tree Arisana being oppressive? You know what? Like, I think I started liking this because I was trying a bunch of different corps, and I was like, man, runners are really annoying and good right now, and like everyone has turbine rig to like ignore your eyes and blah blah blah. So I was kind of fed up with like all the tools runners had to deal with different stuff. And so when I started playing this, it was sort of like whatever tools the runners had, it was just all gone. It was just like, nah, do you want to access this card or do you not? And if you don't, you die, you know? So it felt like more clean, and I actually got, yeah, I felt like sometimes it felt nicer than just like having the runner beat you to death slowly. So in a way, it's a concession, not particular to Arisana, because like, you know, the Arisana list can actually get no one home out. It can like light the fire, a triple advanced card. Like there's problems there. And also there's Stone Ship chart room. So to make it so that they can just sit on their ass more. So it's kind of a problem. It's kind of a problem. Yeah, it was a problem with Hermes, of course. It was a problem with chart rooms, light the fire, and no one home. So Arisana, actually, the World Tree Arisana actually ends up being like sort of a problem for this deck. Now, if you can threaten Mitosis like super early, then you can still kill them. But if they start getting the tree triggers, they can start establishing all the tech cards, and then you're gonna have a tough time, I think. But yeah, I'm not totally sure. In some test games, this was doing well against Ari, but I don't know if against good players. So the RH ended up being like a much safer pick against Ari. Axis says, next time you better announce these somewhere. Got lucky and saw this show up while at work. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just like, I did not plan this ahead of time. I was just like, I want to talk about my decks on stream at some point, and it ended up being today. So yeah, but thanks for showing up. About Swedish Nats, I think I'm going to my niece's birthday party, so I think I'm gonna miss Swedish Nats. But if anyone wants to like hang out, I might be able to do that. Just hit me up on Discord. Better not, would make it too easy for me. Oh, he's saying showing up to Swedish Nats with this. Yeah, I don't want to make it too easy for Axu. No one home usually only prevents 1 damage versus Jinteki. Oh, actually, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it's not as big of a problem. Oh yeah, are you posting the throwback IG? Yes, I should do that. Yeah, why not? Actually, I could talk about those decks right now. Actually, can this be a different? Yeah, let me post those right away because I can talk about that too. That was part of the events technically. Throwback Max. EMEA. Let's see. Okay, so we got the Throwback Max and so let me move this over here and we have IG somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so we got these lists. So Shadow Dancer, to appease you, here is the Throwback IG. Yeah, so basically, yeah, you use Cacador and Cohort Guidance Program for value, and then you can combo that with La Costa, and eventually you like put a clearinghouse on a La Costa and you kill them with the clearinghouse. And you can put a bunch of agendas in archives, and then you protect archives with the void, and then Chrysium makes you safe against like other stuff. So, and also it's really hard to pinhole the voids because they're going to be more expensive due to the ag ability. Notes on this: the Bladderwort ended up not being so great. It gives you some money early, but you essentially never trigger the damage. So it's more like a failsafe, and I'm not sure if it's worth it. I didn't use Kakorenbo even one time, but maybe it's still good to have it there in theory. I'm not sure. The one of Punitive I kind of like in case they end up cracking archives. You might get them with a surprise Punitive, but this might be unnecessary. Yeah, that was my thoughts on the IG. It did really well. It only lost one game where I got surprised APOC and I had pitched my Anoetic, which was a mistake. I think this deck is really strong, and if this was a real format where a meta developed, then you would have decks with Cupulation and Imp as a way to counteract how good IG is if you don't have those cards. So I think IG would have less of a presence once people start adjusting to it. But when people are not adjusted to it, it's incredibly, well, it seems pretty degenerate if you don't have the right tools for it. Is Boto good in this? We don't really reach a threat for much. Yeah, Boto might not be the right call. Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right that there's like a better ice I can play here. I think my logic was just kind of I just wanted something that ends the run, basically. And then yeah, I thought I don't mind trashing a card when I'm playing IG. But that you probably have better options. And then I played. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a nice deck. I think you can definitely tune this, make it a lot better, and you should note the Cohort Guidance Program is super sick because not only does it give you money and lets you trash cards to make IG stronger, it also helps you on your kill turns because it can charge the clearinghouse. So it gets you your clearinghouse to 6 faster. That's really important. Then we had the Throwback Max, which is seemed really good actually, super value. It's just like value Anarch with Ash and Epilogue, so you can shuffle all your stuff back. And then you're milling Strike Funds and Steelskin, getting a bunch of value. And it has labor rights too. Maybe kind of overkill to have this many slots dedicated to that stuff. But it has a lot of drip, and it also drips runs with Alarm Clock. So you can like Alarm Clock, Fenris, Maw, which there was a game where that ended up happening, and I got a bunch of free Maw triggers, which was insane and super cool. And Trat Pingvin asks, tell us how to beat brain rewiring score with Vera and Jupstad. Oh, I'd be happy to tell you about that. So what you do is that you're really good, and then they make you shuffle your cards back with brain rewiring, and then you draw Steel Skin, and then they trash the Steel Skin with Vera, and then you don't die to Jupstad. That's how I did it in the one game where I got hit with that. It was pretty crazy because I was expecting. I knew what the deck was on, but yeah, I wasn't able to prevent it. So I had to get lucky, and I did. It was pretty lucky. It was like 3 Steel Skins in about 20 cards, so it's not that. It will never happen, but it was very lucky. Yeah, pure skill. So both these decks, they did really well, I think. I think it was I don't remember if it was 1 loss each or something like that. But anyway, they did really well. So those are my throwback decks if you want inspiration. I think the Max is a pretty solid concept that you could also tweak it around a bunch, but it's if we're taking throwback deck discussion seriously, then Max seems like a good idea in throwback. This seems like a meta call that be much harder to counter than IG. For IG, it would probably be a lot of runners having imp and ways to get some imps back. Then I think I'm done for today. If there aren't any questions, I'll give a little bit of time for people to ask. Oh, and by the way, go play RH against all these World Triaris. That's the only way to stop it before the ban list hits. Yeah, you might play Scorpios to counter Throwback Max, but then Scorpios to counter but then is Scorpios good in general is a question. You're probably teching too much at that point is what I'm saying, whereas runners don't sacrifice a lot, I think, by playing an imp or cupulation. And when's the drunk stream? Yeah. I know I've said that that's gonna happen at some point, and then I've been very inactive in terms of streaming. So who the hell knows? But it's still a possibility. We'll see. Siat says, well, that was fun for the 5 minutes I've been around. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Hopefully you'll catch me earlier next time. Hope you're doing good. I think Rigshoop Scorp might be aight in general. Yeah, maybe. But okay. Drunk karaoke stream. That would be fun, but I feel like I would need other people, we would need to rent out a venue and stream us doing karaoke. Not a bad idea in general, I'm just saying. Okay, I think looks like no more questions. So that's going to be it for today. I'm going to go eat and stuff. But thank you all for joining. Really nice to have all the engagement in chat, so I have something to bounce off of when doing these. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Again, these are very sporadic at the moment, as I'm sure you can tell. But I'm sure I'll be back at some point. So see you all later. Bye bye.